Welcome into Living on Empty as we are going through the Bible's book of Ecclesiastes, and we are dealing with the unrealistic expectations in men that will drain you and finding some redemptive perspective from God's Word that will help you to enjoy life now. Open your Bible to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and as you do that, I want to challenge you to do something. And that is to have your midlife crisis early. What I mean by midlife crisis, I don't mean go out and buy a Corvette, even though that would be pretty cool. And hey, listen, if you can afford it, go get it and enjoy it. But what I am saying in the midlife crisis is it's a moment of clarity in a man's life in which he realizes what really matters. So the midlife crisis typically comes at a point when a man, he kind of realizes he's had the ladder against the wrong wall the whole time. And what I mean by that is when you're young, there are some expectations of who you thought you were going to be, what you thought you were going to accomplish, and maybe some things of what you thought you were going to have. And maybe we can even add a fourth category in what you thought your life was going to be like. And then somewhere along the way, you wake up one day and you come to the realization you're not going to be who you thought you were going to be. You're not going to accomplish all that you thought you had to accomplish. You probably don't have all the things that you wanted, and your life is probably nothing like you thought it was going to be. And man, I want to tell you, when you hit that point, it becomes an existential crisis, especially when you realize you haven't lived up to all your unrealistic expectations. But let me add one other layer to that. Nobody cares. You look around and you realize, man, I'm not who I thought I was going to be. I don't have what I thought I was going to have. I haven't done what I thought I was going to do. My life isn't the way I thought it was going to be. And man, you look around at the world and everybody else is climbing their own ladder, and they don't really care where you are. And man, you may get to a point where you think, man, I don't matter. And you feel in that moment that same sense of darkness and that same downward spiral that we have seen in Solomon all the way through this book, where he has been echoing the phrase, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Nothing matters. It's just chasing the wind. And here's the deal, guys. You can take that moment that is very difficult. It is very dark. It is very existential. And you can take that moment of mourning, but if you'll take your ladder off the wrong wall and lean it against the right one, man, it can become one of the most liberating moments of your life. It can become extremely clarifying, where all of a sudden you do realize what doesn't matter. And you can realize some little things in life that make a big difference. And this is kind of where Solomon is in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. We're kind of beginning to see him take a subtle turn. And if you read verses 1 through 6, I'm not going to read all of this, but I would summarize it like this. This is not nihilism, where Solomon is saying ultimately nothing matters. There is no joy in life. It's just pessimistic and dark, and do whatever you want because you'll cease to exist anyway. That's not what he's saying here. But this is kind of that my ladder's against the wrong wall moment. And he does realize life doesn't turn out in a lot of ways the way you thought it would. For instance, he says, I laid my heart examining it all. He says, man, this became consuming in my life. And when you take it to heart, it gets to a really hard place. He says, how the righteous and the wise in their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. It's the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, the good and the evil, the clean, the unclean, to him who sacrifices and to him who does not sacrifice. In other words, he says, life doesn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And then he kind of ends this little diatribe in verse 5 by saying, for the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that's done under the sun. In other words, he says, man, that's kind of that existential crisis of, man, you live, you die, life doesn't necessarily go the way you thought it was going to go. And one of the things that is part of that is when you realize you don't turn out to be somebody big, somebody that's recognized, somebody that maybe leaves a legacy, always going to be remembered. This is kind of what Solomon is saying right here is I've always been living my life based on how I'm going to be remembered, but it really doesn't matter because nobody cares. And so he gets his ladder off of that wall of trying to leave a legacy, and he says, you know what? I am going to put my ladder against this wall. And this wall is the little things that make a big difference, the things that I can do every day that really matter. And man, this is what's so amazing about this point of the book. He's about to give you 3 things that really matter, and they're not going to be what you think they're going to be. They're going to be real simple things. So here we go. Check this out. The first one I would call throw a party every day. If you want to do something that really makes a difference, throw a party every day. Look at verses 7 and 8. Go eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments always be white, let not oil be lacking on your head. That's the description of a feast, a festival, a party. And you may be reading that going, that sounds fun, but I can't afford it. Right? You're probably right? So let's kind of really pull out the principle of what Solomon is saying. Solomon's saying, man, you need to get people together. You need to sit around the table. You need to really enjoy the times that you have with people. That's kind of what he's digging at. And if I could kind of make a practical application to where we are in our life, I would say this to you guys. Don't lose the dinner table. What I mean by don't lose the dinner table is the place where you can throw a party every day. The American dinner table has become the place where we come in after a busy, hectic day and we throw all our junk, right? We no longer eat there. It's where our kids throw their bags. We throw our keys. Our wife throws her purse. Everything else that goes in and out of the house usually kind of makes its way to that table. And seldom do we ever eat a meal there. And here's what we've lost in the American home. Because we no longer eat dinner together, because we no longer face one another, we no longer tell stories, we no longer talk about our day. The dinner table is the place where the parents provide counsel to the children. They hear what's going on in their lives. They get to know their kids. Man, we've gotten to the point where we're running so fast from practice to practice to practice, from this coaching to that coaching, from that clinic to that clinic, from this performance to that performance, from this game to that game, that we're going through the drive-thru, we throw the meal in the back seat, and the only time that we talk to our kids is with our mouths full of food running to the next thing we got to get to. And we come in the house empty and exhausted, throw our stuff down on the table. Eventually, everybody goes their separate rooms, everybody goes to bed, and we do it again tomorrow. Man, we've lost the art of the dinner table, and we don't throw a party any day. So I would counsel you with this. Hey, guys, for those of you who are watching this who still have kids at home, don't lose the dinner table. You need to slow life down a little bit. All that stuff the world tells you that you're chasing, what you really need is time with your kids. FaceTime with your kids, not on the phone, with your kids. Don't lose that. Maybe you say, well, we don't have children at home. Maybe you're not married. Maybe you are married. Maybe your kids are grown up. Maybe you don't have children. But think about throw a party every day kind of like this. Who are some people that maybe you can use your home or your dinner table to get together with on a regular basis? Who are some people that maybe every Friday night you invite out to eat? Maybe it's every week or every month or something. But hey, listen, you need a group of people that you throw a party with every day. Maybe it's somebody you go to lunch with on a regular basis. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is. But the principle of what he's getting at here is, listen, you can't go through life as a loner. And you need to be getting together with people. Put the white garment on. Have a little bit of joy in your life. Have some good conversation, some merry times of fellowship with some other people. So listen, if you want to do a little thing that makes a big difference, take somebody to lunch on a regular basis. Throw a party every day. Number 2, here comes another one. Love your wife. Look at verse 9. He says, enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and your toil at which you toil under the sun. You know, throughout, if you're married, you ought to make your marriage a priority. I think a lot of times what happens is if you have children, you make your children a priority. But I want to tell you this, guys, at the time I'm taping this, I'm 52 years old. I raised 2 wonderful, beautiful girls. But one, I'm in Chatsworth, Georgia. One of my daughters is in Nashville, Tennessee. The other one is in Atlanta. They're over an hour apart, or an hour, one of them's 3 hours away in either direction, right? And man, I cherish the time that I was raising my children. But I'll tell you this, at one point, your children will leave you, and they should. You ought to raise them to take the arrow of God's word and the effect of culture out there into the world to make a difference. You ought to raise them aimed at God so they can make a difference in the world. And I'm proud of them. But hey, listen, your children will leave you. And there you are with your wife. And man, we don't want to become like 2 ships passing in the night where we're in the same house, but we're not having fun. And I love when he uses these words, enjoy life with your wife. You know, when I say this, I don't want to disparage Christian counseling. I don't want to disparage counseling. I don't want to say that there's no place for counseling, because there is. My family has used professional counseling. I recommend people at times to professional counseling. But I'll tell you this, you could probably save a lot of money in counseling if you just get back to having some fun with your wife. When I counsel people and a couple sits in front of me and they go through all their problems, I'll eventually look at them and ask this question, are y'all having fun anymore? And man, they just talk about how miserable they are with each other. Somewhere along the way, love grew cold. And here's the deal, guys. This is what I would tell you. Enjoy, and I love it again, enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life. Man, life's hard enough. When life is hard, it's hard to come home and not be having fun. So here's the deal, guys. From a counseling perspective, I think Solomon kind of said it early on. You're never going to figure her out, right? But man, just to love her, hug her, flirt with her, talk to her, share your day with her, sit at the table with her, look her in the face, get back to having fun, going on dates, pursuing one another. Man, enjoy life with the wife whom you love. And I think the irony of this statement is also that Solomon said it. And he's saying it at the end of his life. And here's my question to you guys that know the Bible. How many wives did he have? Boy, he had all of them. If that's really what we could say, he had all the women in the world. But I think what Solomon is saying, I think as he writes this, I can't prove this, but this is kind of what's in my mind. I think when Solomon writes this, he's probably going back to that pursuit that he wrote about in Song of Solomon, when they were in the joy of the chase of one another. And Solomon's pretty much looking and going, listen, man, you don't need to find another wife. That's your ladder against the wrong wall. Man, some guys, they get this fantasy in their mind. If I could find another woman, another wife, then I'd enjoy life. Solomon's going, get your ladder off of that wall and just do something little that'll make a big difference in your marriage. Just start having fun again. Go back to chasing her. Go back to loving her. Just get back to some small things that'll make a big difference. Make a simple decision. I'm going to love her and I'm going to enjoy life with her. Number 3 is this little thing that'll make a big difference. Hey, do your best. Look at verse 10. He says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. There's no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. He says, man, one of these days you're going to die. So, man, you ought to enjoy your days now, right? When you go to work, you may say, I hate my job. But you know what? That does not diminish that you can give it your best in that place, that you can make a difference. You can get up every day and going, you know what? I'm going to put in a good day at work. That's a good goal for a man. The other thing I would say about this is every man needs something to look forward to. What are the goals, the personal goals that you're kind of aiming at, where you're giving it your best? I always kind of have some goals every year, something I want to accomplish. Last year, I wanted to climb a mountain in Tennessee called Mount LeConte, but I wanted to do it without stopping. I didn't want to go every 30 minutes and be just, putting my hands on my hips and trying to catch my breath. I wanted to be in the kind of shape that I could get from the bottom to the top in one climb without stopping, just hitting some water along the way, but taking no breaks. And I did it. One year it was to ride a bicycle 3,000 miles, and I did it. This year it's to ride a bicycle along this gravel road. It's going to be about a 20-mile trip. But to make it from the bottom to the top of a mountain where there's a lake, that one's going to be really hard. But that's my goal, and it gives me something to kind of look forward to and work at every day, every week to try to accomplish those goals. What are the things that you're giving it your best, whether it's the weight room or the golf course or whatever it is? Man, you got to have something you look forward to, a goal you're trying to achieve. It kind of keeps you motivated every day that, hey, man, you're going to give it your best. One of these days your health is going to fail if you live long enough. One of these days you won't have the opportunity to maybe climb a mountain or to do those things. So, man, you need to do your best and make some good memories, whether it's a day at work, whether it's your things at home, or whether it's just accomplishing some goals. Hey, listen, guys, get your ladder off that wall of thinking, I have to be something big. I have to do something big. Just put it against that wall of, man, just some simple daily things will make a big difference in my life. I want to end with a story because Solomon kind of ends with a story, and this one's kind of weird. So he says in verse 11, again, I saw under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, or riches to the intelligent. In other words, he says, kind of like last week, the good guy doesn't always win, and the strongest guy always doesn't finish first. So he goes on down through here, and then he ends with a story. He says, I have seen this example of wisdom under the sun, verse 13, and it seemed great to me. There was a little city with few men in it. A great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor, wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. And this guy saved the city. Now, before we read on, let me ask you this question. Do you think they threw him a parade? No, they did not. Listen to this. Yet no one remembered that poor man. He was completely forgotten, completely overlooked. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. In other words, Solomon says this. Even though nobody recognized him, even though nobody remembered him, it doesn't diminish what he actually did. They may not have thrown him a parade, but he did save the city. He did something that made a big difference. And it doesn't matter that no one paid attention. The words of the wise are heard in quiet, are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Man, you don't have to have everybody's attention to make a difference. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. In other words, he says, hey, listen, you can make a big difference in your life, but one stupid thing can kind of ruin it, and we'll get into that later on. He'll bring up in the next session we'll talk about how you can do one dumb decision to ruin a lot of things. So he kind of sets up that context. But so let's end with this. I'm going to put a picture of a guy on the screen for you, and I want to ask you a question. Do you know who this guy is? Probably not. But I'll tell you this, if I was born in 1973, I was alive in 1983, and I want to tell you, this guy saved my life. If you were alive in 1983, this guy saved your life. If you're like, well, I've been born since 1983, I'm going to tell you this guy right here on the screen, he gave you an opportunity at life. His name is Stanislav Petrov. And Stanislav Petrov was an officer in the Russian military, and his job was to watch the radar during the Cold War. And one night, on his radar appeared missiles heading from the United States of America to Russia. First strike. And his orders were to alert his commanding officer that missiles were on the way so that they could set off the chain reaction of response of firing missiles also at the United States. But Petrov paused. He looked at that and thought, there's something that's not right. And what he noticed that wasn't right is if this was America's first strike, there ought to be more missiles. It wouldn't be that small. And so he did a little investigation, and he found out that it was an error in the data that he was reading on the radar, and he didn't report it. So you know who Stanislav Petrov is? He's the guy who saved the world. You know what he got for that? Reprimanded. That's right. He got reprimanded because he didn't report it the way he was supposed to in the chain reaction. Instead, he went with his gut instinct, used a little wisdom, and Stanislav Petrov saved the world. And for you young guys, he gave you an opportunity at life. But nobody knows who he is. Nobody recognized him. He got reprimanded. Hey, listen, they didn't throw him a parade, but that doesn't diminish what he did. Wisdom makes a difference. And listen, guys, getting your ladder off that wall of my life doesn't matter because I haven't become something big, haven't done something big, I don't have big things, and getting it against the ladder of, hey, listen, clean off the dinner table and have dinner with the people you love every day. Throw a party every day. Love your wife. Enjoy her. Listen, get some things in your life and just do your best with every day God gives you. When you get your ladder against that wall, you'll figure out that some small things will make a big difference. You are important to your family. Your wife will see that pursuit. She'll appreciate it. Man, you will enjoy some things that you're just doing your best at and trying to enjoy them by giving it your all. Some things to look forward to. Those things will make a big difference in your life. And hey, listen, guys, as always, the biggest difference to make in your life is that decision to repent of sin, turn to Christ, and to be saved. Think of the sacrifice he made for you. He's really the guy who saved the world, the one who gave his life for us all. And so if you're not saved, I would encourage you, man, the most joy you can bring into your life is to be saved today. Well, guys, a lot to talk about here. I hope that you'll meet together, go through the questions that we have attached to this session for you, and I will see you in the next session.